Hello, I am Nicolas Russo, and today I am going to be interviewing my grandmother for an English project. So, hello.
Hello. Thank you for asking me. I feel very important.
Thank you for coming. So to start off, I'm just going to ask you about a little bit of your background, like how many siblings did you have, where did you grow up, where do you live now, all that stuff. So.
Okay. I have one sibling, a sister, and I was living in New Haven with my grandmother in my grandmother's house until I was 8, and then my mother, father, sister, and I moved to West Haven, and that's where we lived until I was married.
And so now you're in Clinton.
And now we've moved to Clinton. Yep, and that's where I grew up my family.
All right, and your name is Paula.
Paula.
All right, yes, okay. So now let's get started with some very deep questions, starting with one about social media.
Okay.
So, social media is becoming, and already is, a large part of our society. Do you think that these platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat are a good thing or a bad thing, and why do you think that?
First of all, I have to plead ignorance. I know Facebook. I was on it for a short time. I don't know Snapchat or Instagram. I know that we have them, but I've never used them. Facebook, I have mixed feelings. I can see where it would be good to try to get in touch with friends and people that you may not see regularly. I get a little concerned with opinionated forums that are on there that come across as fact. I think people today don't read as much as they should, and my fear is that they're going to go on Facebook, see things that are on there, and think that that is the only information out there. So I don't do Facebook very often, I have to admit. It was very time consuming when I was interested in it. And then I found I was only using it to get recipes and things like that. So I kind of don't use it that much anymore. But I have reservations about all of that.
All right. So, just so you know, Snapchat is a thing where you can take pictures and then send them to your friends with short messages. It's good. I feel it's good and bad. But here's the next thing. Is what if I told you, and this is a real statistic, that the hospitalization rate for teenage girls due to self-harm from social media is up 55 to 65% in the last decade. How does that make you feel, and does that reinforce or change your opinion?
It infuriates me, and it reinforces my fears. I feel that it's very difficult. People have difficulty, more so today than even ever before, with interpersonal relationships. You're on a medium that is very easy to hide behind.
Yes.
No one, even phones today. My biggest gripe is that we all have phones. We all have cell phones, but it's a misnomer to even call it a phone because hardly anyone uses it in that capacity.
Like to actually talk with people.
Yes, you text and you send email, but as far as actually talking to a living, breathing person, it's very rare today. So my reservation is that this is only increasing the anonymity portion of it. And when you are anonymous to people, you are a lot freer to behave in ways that you normally wouldn't.
Yeah. All right. So now let's go to this one. So nowadays, new developments and new technologies are made faster and faster, leading to an ever-changing society and environment. Do you think that this rapid change is causing positive or negative effects on us?
I am very excited for the future. I'm one of these people that I tend to not look back into history. I like to look forward and try to guess what it's going to be like in the future.
Yeah, I know that about you.
So as far as rapid advancement, it can't come rapidly enough for me. I just sent your father information on a new idea for a phone that is being developed. It's just so amazing to
Isn't
me.
it like the one that like it's a phone and then
A
you can fold it
trifold,
open?
yes,
And, yeah,
yes.
it's crazy.
It's absolutely, it's only a prototype, but I feel as a science, fiction enjoyer, a lot of things that are being presented as science fiction and like impossible, well, they are coming true.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the advancements are, just keep them coming. I think they're wonderful. I mean, there are a lot of ways to misuse some of the new developments,
Definitely.
and that really has to be monitored. And I feel right now we're not keeping pace. The
No.
advancements are coming so quickly, and the safety regulations, if you want to call them that, they're not nearly up to speed. So you're going to get a lot of gray area with all of these new inventions. But I think positive. I think in the long run it'll work out.
All right. Next up. So the news, if you watch TV, is always usually only showing the negatives, like shootings or giant fires and all that stuff. Is this good so that we can see the problems and try to address them? Or is it more of a negative thing that, like, the news is teaching us there's no good in the world and that everything is bad?
I think the latter. I'm not a fan of all of this negative news. I have people that know me have heard me say, we were much better off in the olden days when we didn't know about a lot of the stuff that was happening. Now, I don't know if I really 100% feel that way, but I really think that we, today, when you say news, I feel we don't have news today. We have many, many people's opinions about what is being presented. To me, news needs to be impartial. It needs to show both sides, and that's the job of the news, is to present that so that people can read and formulate their own opinions. I feel that I really am getting kind of tired of watching news and really only hearing other people's opinions on what they're reporting. So that's a bugaboo of mine, if you want to call it that. But as far as negativity, I tend to tune out stations or media that are constantly focusing on that. There's one station in particular, that's all they do, and I find that I never, ever will put that on. You need to have an example set for you. You need to be inspired by people who have done outstanding things for mankind, and the more you hear of that, I feel, the more you can inspire other people to do the same. If you never hear it and you never think about that, then chances are it's not going to become a part of who you are. If you're constantly hearing about all the bad things and the new ways you can do such terrible things, I kind of get annoyed and fearful that they're planting seeds in minds of people that maybe they wouldn't have thought of this themselves. But now they have something new to try to emulate. And you don't want them emulating the bad things.
Yeah, like I remember hearing a thing, remember that with I think they were Thai kids from a soccer team that got trapped in a cave.
Yes.
When that was over, a lot of people were sad because now there's nothing hopeful in the news. Like, we had this one thing to rally around. The entire world was like, let's get these kids out. And then the kids were out and now the news is all bad again. And so people were sad that kids were saved because now there's nothing to hope for. So it's just...
It's true, but you also have to realize the reason why we all that's so memorable to all of us is because it's so few and far between that you don't hear these stories. There's one news station, if you want to call it that, who tries to end every hourly newscast with a positive news, and I find that I wait for that. I find that I look forward to hearing what that is. So I think we need more of that. Also, our programming on TV is not like it was years ago. No. You don't see positive examples of family life. You see the exceptions maybe to the rule, or you see something that is what I would call questionable. And I would hate and it seems like people are finding that that's the model now.
Yeah.
That's what they're holding up to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly the shows that we watched when I was your age, those families were really, maybe people would say they're unreal. There were no families that were really like that. Well, that's probably true, but it gave us something to aspire to. It
Yeah.
gave us something to try to be like.
Like that, this is an example of a good family.
Right.
Let's try to be like them, instead of all of the shows being, this is a hilariously bad family. That's all the shows. This must be normal. Let's try to be like that.
Kind of. I agree. Yeah, that's,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. We talked about that one. Okay. 9. Okay. Do you think that you are the kind of person who can easily forgive others, or are you more prone to holding grudges against people?
I don't believe in holding grudges. I find it's terribly energy consumptive and it is terribly unconstructive. I find that almost sometimes scarily so. I always feel that I think I could find something good about anybody or any situation. I don't know why I feel that way, but when you look at a person and you see the sum total of that person, I feel there's always something there that you can find that's redemptive, that you could work with.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So, so you obviously like that you can easily forgive others for things that they've done. Do you think at some point it's good to hold something against someone, or do you think it's always good to just forgive people and let their bad things go, or do you think there's a point where you have to say, this person has done this, I can't really forgive them for that?
Well, in terms of the word forgiving, I mean, I'm not saying that if you've done something that you shouldn't be held accountable and punished for that. I certainly agree that otherwise we would have anarchy. But as far as forgiveness, it's up to the person and how they perceive what they've done, what their intentions are in the future. All of that is part and parcel of that. I'm not saying blanket forgiveness. That's really hard to do, and it really serves no purpose, and it's not helpful to either party. But as far as forgiveness, there's so many examples of when it has become beneficial to both the person that's being forgiven and the person that's doing the forgiving. I mean, God has blessed me so that I've never really been in a situation where I've had some harm done to me or someone that I know. So it could very well be that I would be whistling a different tune right now if that happened. But I think the majority of the time I feel that it's just not helpful to not at least work toward that goal. It may not always be possible, but to hold a grudge really serves no purpose. I don't see that it's helpful in the long run.
All right. All right. So, what do you think are the necessary components to leading a meaningful life?
Necessary components. Well, I would hope that everyone has a moral compass of some kind. Whether you get that through your faith or through your family, but I would think that you'd need some kind of inner direction to kind of help you to always choose wisely. Relationships are very important. I, first and foremost, would think that your family should be your focal point for most of your life, regardless of your age. I would think that you'd want to live so that you don't hurt anyone intentionally. so that you can trust, so that you can work toward the betterment of certainly not just yourself, but of others around you. That's kind of what I've always tried to do. I kind of have always tried to put myself dead last in most situations. And it kind of has worked out for me. It gives me peace. It keeps me calm. I don't get involved with what I consider petty competitions. I certainly tell people that I've loved to be in a relationship that is of benefit to both of you, so that you're helping them and they're helping you. Otherwise, I don't feel it's a healthy relationship. So those are kind of some of the guideposts I've used.
All right. So kind of playing off of that, you've had multiple kids, you've had a job, you've retired, you've had a successful marriage, obviously, with Grandpa here. You can wave to the camera. Yeah. So you've been on multiple vacations. It's pretty obvious that you've had a very successful life.
I think so.
Yeah. It's very clear that you've had a successful life. But has it really been meaningful to you? Or have you just been like, all right, this is fine, but has it really been meaningful?
I would like to think that it has been for me. I know that I've often thought, if anyone else was looking at my life in terms of what I've accomplished, they'd probably say, this was a waste of a life or energy or
you
time.
Want to think that?
I think other people might viewing me. I don't feel that way. I've taught, so I've certainly feel that I have helped my students in the years that I've taught. I was a secretary at a parish church, and I got to know hundreds of families, and I'd like to think, at least I was told, that I was very helpful to them. I've done a lot of different jobs in my life, mainly because we try to financially, make ends meet. So I've done indexing for a publishing company.
Yep.
I've cleaned houses, and I've often said, it doesn't matter to me what I do. I felt that I could always find a way to financially help the family when needed. Hard work I never viewed hard work and labor as menial or demeaning. I really think it's your attitude in life, and it's how you approach things. As far as a parent, I certainly tried to give my kids the best that I could. It wasn't always, what they would consider today to be, keeping up with the Joneses, but we never ever felt that we were deprived or disadvantaged in any way. We may not have had the best of the best, but it was the best that we could do, and that was fine with me. So I think in some total of my life, I would like to think that I've helped a lot of people.
All right. So, all right. Nowadays, to be hip and cool and with the kids, you always have to have the hot new fad. There's always a new thing. Like right now, it's AirPods. You've probably never heard of them. Lord knows I haven't until like 2 weeks ago, and I was poked fun at for not knowing what AirPods were. But do you think like this way of life came about because of like the greed of humans and how you always have to have everything, or do you think it's just like a societal push, like we came out with this thing, we're going to pay a lot of money to have you like it?
I think there's definitely a societal push, and I think that the media also has a big hand in this. When my kids were little, we would blame the television for showing all of the latest toys on TV, and the kids had to have it. But as I said, again, looking back at the generation when my kids were little, they didn't have everything that came out. And we were okay with that. But I really feel it was because the environment that they grew up in were with other kids that were similarly situated. So we just all felt that we were kind of in the same bucket. Today, with the media and the geographic mobility of people, it's a little bit you're not as cloistered as we
Yeah.
might have been. Your opportunities are vast today. And so you do want to have the latest advances. Certainly as a techno interested person that I am, I love to know about it. I may not aspire to have it because it may not be in my means. And I think that people need to know that's okay. I think there's too much pressure on getting the latest and greatest. I just don't see that you should get all of your pleasure and enjoyment in life from that angle, that you have to have the best of everything. I was fortunate too because we had friends who shared. They may have been better off than we, but they shared with my children what they had. So we were never really deprived of it, even though we may not be able to own it. And I think that there needs to be more of that. There needs to be more relationships with people to share what they have. And today, that's more difficult, made more difficult because of the media and because of how isolated we've become, where social media is concerned, where two parents are working and there's an empty house for most of the day, and the kids come home to a lot of times an empty house. So there's a lot of pressures that a lot of times these are substitute things for that. Interpersonal relationships that you don't have. So it's things that you look for that you hope will give you status or pleasure. I think that that's a mistake. I think I would much prefer to see you appreciate these new inventions and these new ideas, but to wreck your life trying to get them, that's really silly.
Yeah, and like the different fads are meant for different purposes. Like AirPods are meant for status. They're not really that helpful. What AirPods are wireless earbuds.
Okay.
But they're $100.
Wow.
So kids buy them so that they can say, "Hey, look, I'm rich.
Well,
I can spend $100 on these useless pieces of technology." And so it's just a status
you have earbuds now. When we were younger, maybe it was a certain kind of sneaker that was $100.
Oh yeah, that still happens.
Well, and unfortunately, in society and with the society pressures, these kids today will actually commit crimes to try to get these items just for the status sake, and that's the harm. I mean, it's my children, I have to say, name brands of clothing. We didn't have any of those pressures.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it didn't exist. And maybe they did feel that they wished that they had them, but they knew that the reality was we couldn't. So it was not that important. And I don't think that they grew up any worse for wear because of it. I just look on society today. I think that the importance that we give to so much shows that there's something terribly lacking in the moral compass that we should have. I just see no purpose to all of this. It's so shallow, and one fad this year is going to be out by next year. And in the meantime, you've basically sold your soul to get it. And I just think that it's, in my opinion, as an old timer, it's ridiculous.
It is. I think that too. So, all right. So, what do you think made your marriage with Grandpa so successful? I'm bringing you into this.
Oh,
because it's lasted a long time. You haven't had a divorce.
No,
it's obviously been successful.
Well, we were of one mind, and if we weren't, we kind of talked it out. But he was very supportive of me always. I decided not to go back to teaching and to stay home and raise my kids. This was a big financial burden for both of us, but he was very supportive of that. Any time I wanted to take a new job or he was very supportive of that. We always talked through our plans. Plus, that was another thing. We always had a plan for or a goal, I
Yeah.
should say. Grandpa was always very, he viewed goals as being very important, not just for us, but for our kids as well. He always felt that you needed a goal to have a plan in your life. So we were partners in crime, if you want to call it that. Any project we wanted to do around the house, it was both of us that put in the blood, sweat, and tears to get it done. We had similar views on family. Our families were very important to us. He grew up in a big Italian family, and so did I.
Yeah.
And we felt it was very important to honor our parents and the other members of the family. So there wasn't a big adjustment there to be made. We were both teachers, so we had that in common. We enjoyed the same activities, so it was not a whole lot of adjustment that we had to do, and it just worked.
And it's kind of funny because you two are both teachers, and you had my dad, and my dad became a teacher who married a teacher, which is a little crazy, but that's cool. All right, so kind of playing off of that, from my standpoint, the most usual amount of children to have is 2 or 3. There's a lot of people who are having 2 or 3 kids, and that's normal. Having 1 kid is definitely more rare than having 2 or 3. Why do you think this is, and why did you yourself have 2?
For us, I would probably say it was financial. I think that we felt it would have been a burden to try to raise the way we wanted to raise our children, giving them college educations. And in my generation, well, I shouldn't even say that because there's a lot of exceptions. We wanted to be able to provide for their college. We didn't expect that they should pay for it themselves. So we felt that 2 was sufficient for us. I marveled at a lot of people who had more than that. I think today, what you're finding at least, and it's kind of scary to me, there's an awful lot of no children families, for whatever reason. I certainly don't want to sit here and give judgment, but it's kind of scary. I think there's probably a lot of focus on oneself today. Wanting a career, wanting the best, as you said, of everything, wanting the mobility to be able to just pick up and move. That makes it's a lot easier when you don't have a responsibility on you of children. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's a lot more complicated and it's a lot more financially complex.
Definitely.
So I think a lot of relationships today are opting for no children, and I feel that that's a shame because for many, many reasons. But I just feel there should be less focus on oneself for many reasons. You need to really look around you and give back. And your life is less complicated and easier without children, but without someone to be dependent on you. But I think you also miss out an awful lot if you don't have that.
All right. So do you've said it a bunch of times, but I guess I'm going to ask it again. Do you think that having a family or being part of a family is a really important part of life? It sounds ridiculous asking it because you've said it about 20 times now. But
I do. I really do. To the point where I really have a hard time understanding why everybody doesn't want that. I find myself thinking, for example, when I hear of someone who is single, or I often say, well, maybe I could help them find someone, or maybe someday they'll realize that the importance of having a child of their own. I know that that's very narrow focused, narrow-minded, but that's the way I feel. It's very hard for me to see a single person's life as fulfilled, which is probably very wrong, but that's who I am.
All right. So how do you think you would be different from you are today if you didn't have a loving family growing up and didn't have children or marry a grandpa or whatever? How do you think you would be different?
The only thing that I really don't know, I can't even imagine a life like that. There was only one time when I was younger where I thought I wanted to pursue a career and then ended up not doing it. And that was an executive secretary. That was something that I always wanted to do. And instead I went into teaching, which was fine and which I loved at the time. But every once in a while, but in the summertime, when we needed to supplement teaching income, I would become a secretary for a temporary agency. And I loved that work. And I often wondered if I should have pursued that. There was many chances for advancement in that field way back then. There probably still is. They probably call it a lot of different things today, not secretary, maybe administrative assistant or whatever. I always felt that maybe I could have been good at that. I don't know what it would entail. I don't know if I could have been equal to the task of any kind of sacrifice that might be needed, but that was the only thing that I kind of wondered what would happen if I did pursue that. But I can't imagine a life without a family and without connections.
All right. We're nearing the end, so this is where we get into the really juicy stuff. Are you afraid of aging more and more and like losing more of the muscle you have and maybe eventually going to a cane or a walker or whatever? Does that scare you, or
No.
are you impartial?
It doesn't scare me. As you get older, you realize that physically you can't do what you used to do. I certainly know that I haven't done for myself probably what I should in terms of exercise, and I'm not one to do the latest fads and all of that, going to the gym. I'm not that kind of person, but I don't dye my hair. I'm not trying to pretend I'm of an age that I'm not. I don't mind aging. And you do what you have to do to get yourself around, whether it means a cane or a walker. I don't really view that as shameful in any way. So,
all right. And the last one. If you knew exactly when you were going to die, what would you do with the rest of your life?
Absolutely nothing differently than I'm doing right now, because I think I'm very blessed. I have a life that I wanted, that I've aspired to. I always wanted to be a mother, and I was. I always wanted to be a wife, and I am. Maybe travel a little more. But that's probably the only thing that I would do differently. As far as the house I live in, I love. We've maintained it. That's what we enjoy doing. I'm blessed that I still have my husband to do things with. So as far as enjoying life, I'm doing that right now. So I really can't see the reason to change anything.
That's great. All right, so I'm out of questions. Thank you very much for coming and letting me interview you. It was a pleasure.
Well, it was a pleasure for me too. And as
All
I
right.
said, I really did feel honored when you asked. So it was very enjoyable, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.